A year ago, I made a video about vitamin K2. I called the hard evidence intriguing but unproven. I said that we needed a bigger, cleaner trial before anyone should get too excited. Well, that trial has just landed, and it did exactly what was hoped. The vitamin K2 group, they built up less calcium in their arteries than the placebo group. So you'd think I'd be sitting here telling you that it's a win, but I'm not. Reading this trial carefully has made me more cautious, not less. So let me show you why. And to address the first objection of this new study, the one thing that you've almost certainly been told is that you have to take vitamin K2 with vitamin D and magnesium, or it just doesn't work, and then the calcium ends up in your arteries rather than your bones. That is overblown. Yes, we do need good amounts of vitamin D and magnesium, the same as every other vitamin and mineral, and then you'll be fine. So the new trial that I'm about to show you, the strongest one for the link between vitamin K2 and your heart, it used vitamin K2 on its own. The point isn't that magnesium and vitamin D don't matter, it's that you don't need to megadose them. And a quick note before we get into this trial and my concerns, if you're new here, I'm Brad Stanfield, I'm a family medicine doctor, and on this channel my mission is to give you science and the practical tools to live longer and feel better. And even though I'm a physician, I'm not your physician, so please talk with your doctor before you make any changes to your health, as this video is educational and not medical advice. The researchers gave 360 micrograms of vitamin K2 on its own every day for 2 years, or a placebo, to people who already had some calcium building up in their coronary arteries. So that's an important point. These trial participants, they already had diseased blood vessels, and over the 2 years, the calcium score went up in everyone, but it climbed less in the vitamin K2 group. So in plain numbers, the calcium score rose about 36% in the vitamin K2 group versus 48% in the placebo group. And the actual mass of calcium, which is a more reliable way to measure it, rose 7 milligrams in vitamin K2 versus 12 in the placebo group. So that does matter more than it sounds, because a calcium score, it's a bit jumpy. It can wobble depending on exactly how the scan picks up those dense, bright flecks. So the fact that the calcium mass moved in the same direction as the score is reassuring. It tells you that this probably isn't just a quirk of one measurement method. They both pointed in the same way. And they also checked a blood marker that tells you whether the vitamin K2 actually switched on the system that it's supposed to switch on inside the body, and that moved in the right way as well. So vitamin K2 got in, the mechanism fired, and it did the biochemical thing that it's meant to do, and the calcium climbed more slowly. So the 3 separate signals all lined up in the same direction. So as a piece of biology, it's clean. And this is a real step up from where we were a year ago. The trial that I covered back then was Danish, and it was a null result overall. It showed only a benefit in a subset of people who already had the most calcium in their arteries to begin with. This new trial is cleaner. It was a real result across the whole group, not just one slice of it. So is it settled then that we should be taking vitamin K2 for our hearts? Well, no. And the honest catch comes in the same breath as the good news. So the authors themselves, they call the overall effect size modest. And there's a number inside the trial that really matters. So they looked at people whose calcium was racing ahead, the fast progressors, and they asked whether vitamin K2 cut the rate of progression for that group down, but it didn't. The share of fast progressors was basically the same in both groups. And there's one more thing. This positive trial, it doesn't sit on its own. It sits in a small crowd of trials where vitamin K2 did nothing at all. So in people with type 2 diabetes, it did nothing. In people with kidney disease, it did nothing. So pulling all of these trials together, a pattern shows up. Vitamin K2, it seems to slow calcium buildup for people who already have calcium quietly building up in their blood vessels. It's not a take it and stay clean forever pill, which is quite interesting. But even taking the best possible reading of this data, even if every little bit of benefit is real, there's a much bigger problem waiting underneath it. So slowing a calcium score down is not the same thing as preventing heart attacks. So a higher calcium score, it does track with a higher risk, but it's a measurement on a scan. It's not an event in your life. And no vitamin K2 randomized controlled trial has ever shown the thing that actually matters the most, as in fewer heart attacks or fewer deaths. In fact, the one trial that looked at hard outcomes, so real heart attacks and real deaths in dialysis patients, found no difference at all. Now, yes, that trial was small, and it was in a very specific group of patients on dialysis, so of course it doesn't slam the door shut on vitamin K2 supplements, but it's the only hard outcome trial that we've got, and it came back empty. But surely if we have less calcium in blood vessels, that has to be a good thing. Less gunk in the artery, less danger. That feels obvious, and that's exactly where the story gets a bit strange. So picture plaque in an artery wall. It's soft, inflamed, and it's a greasy little pocket, and that's the most dangerous kind. The danger isn't really the calcium. The danger is that pocket bursting open and then triggering a clot. Now, what does the body do to a wound that it can't fully heal? It walls it off. It lays down hard calcium over the top, like a shell, like a scab that's gone solid. And that hard, dense calcium isn't the bomb, it's the casing around the bomb. It's holding that dangerous stuff shut. The body deposits calcium to try and stabilize that plaque, which makes the unsettling question even sharper. When vitamin K2 slows calcium down, is it slowing down plaque stabilization? Is it leaving a vulnerable plaque to rupture? A scan that just gives you one total number can't tell those two things apart. Yes, it counts the calcium, but it doesn't ask whose side it's on, which is exactly why we need the hard outcome data. We need to know what happens to heart attack rates, not just what happens on a scan. And this isn't me just being clever for the sake of it. There's a real, well-known example that turns the obvious intuition completely upside down, and that is statins. So statins are one of the best proven medicines we have for cutting heart attack rates and deaths. But here's the strange part. Statins actually increase the amount of calcium in your arteries. They turn that soft, dangerous pocket into solid, stable scar tissue, and people do better. So sit with that for a second. A drug that can add calcium to your arteries saves lives. So more calcium on a scan can be a good thing in the right context, which means that moving calcium the other way or slowing it down could easily just be neutral, it could be helpful, or it could be quietly harmful. We just don't know which. And I want to be really careful here because this is the part that can get twisted into a scare story when it shouldn't be. K2 is not ripping calcium out of the stable scar tissue that you've already built. It's just slowing down new calcium forming in plaques that are still developing. So those might be two completely different things. Slowing the new stuff might be totally fine. It might even be a good thing. But equally, it might not. And the new trial can't answer it because it didn't look. It measured calcium. It didn't measure the soft, dangerous, non-calcified plaque itself. It didn't measure how much of it there was or how much of it became stable or less stable. So the headline, that vitamin K2 slows down artery calcium, that is true. And the question that actually decides on whether you should care is this good for your heart? And that question is still wide open. So to me, right now, there isn't compelling evidence to take vitamin K2 for heart health. But there's a whole other half of the vitamin K2 story, and that is bone health. So if you're going to take vitamin K2 for anything, bone is where the evidence is most reasonable. More reasonable, honestly, than the heart. There's some decent trial evidence that vitamin K2 helps to slow down the loss of bone density as you age. The single best trial that we have used 180 micrograms a day over a 3-year time horizon, and it modestly slowed down the decline in bone mineral density at the spine and in the hip, and this was a trial in postmenopausal women. But there is a problem with this. Improving bone density is not the same as preventing a fracture, so density is just a number on a scan, much like what we were looking at with vitamin K2 and heart health. So a fracture is the thing that actually changes your life, and when you look specifically at fractures, vitamin K2, it hasn't been shown to reduce them. We just don't have that evidence yet. But I'd much rather present that full evidence to you and acknowledge where the evidence is lacking. So if you've heard all of this and you still decide that vitamin K2 is worth a try, fair enough. Then there are two practical things that genuinely matter, and the first is something that almost nobody talks about. So a lot of the vitamin K2 supplements that are sitting on a shelf right now, the vitamin K2 isn't really there by the time that you swallow it. The form that's used in these trials is called MK7, and MK7 is fragile. Over time, it slowly degrades into inactive molecules, and that breakdown it speeds up when you pack vitamin K2 into the same pills as minerals such as calcium and magnesium. And this isn't theoretical. When an independent lab actually tested popular vitamin K2 products, some were caught carrying only a fraction of what was on the label. One well-known product had barely a third of its claimed vitamin K2. One potential fix on the manufacturing side is to use a protected encapsulated form, one that's coated so that it survives sitting next to those minerals without breaking down. And even if a label says that the vitamin K2 is encapsulated, it's best to verify that claim by checking on third-party testing websites such as consumerlab.com or labdoor.com. And once you've sorted out whether the vitamin K2 in the supplement that you're buying is actually there, then there's the question of the dose, and there's also a safety point. So let's start with the dose. The numbers from the trials that we've been looking at, they range between 180, even all the way up to 720 micrograms. but there's no recognized recommended daily requirement for vitamin K2. For vitamin K1, it's 120 micrograms. So what's a sensible vitamin K2 supplement dose? Well, it's difficult to say because, again, we lack the required data. And no upper safety limit has ever been set for vitamin K2. And the longest running trials that we have, they run for about 3 years. So nobody actually knows what happens if we take 360 micrograms a day for, say, 20 years. So given that, a more conservative dosing strategy would be to take something like 90 micrograms a day. That dose doesn't bet your next 2 decades on high experimental amounts before anyone's checked whether that's a safe thing to do over the long term. And now the safety point. If you're on warfarin, which is an old blood thinner, the one that you get regular blood tests for, you should be extremely cautious when using vitamin K2. So vitamin K, it works directly against warfarin, and the MK7 version of vitamin K2, it does it at even tiny doses because it hangs around in the body for days. Some experts say that patients on warfarin should avoid vitamin K2 entirely. One important reassurance on that though is that this is specifically an issue with warfarin. So aspirin and newer blood thinners such as apixaban, dabigatran and rivaroxaban, they are not affected. It's warfarin where the vitamin K is an issue. So overall, this new trial is tentatively positive, but there is a theoretical possibility that vitamin K2 might worsen heart attack rates, and what we really need now is a trial that looks at hard outcome data like heart attack rates and stroke rates. And be careful with doses and make sure to check third-party testing websites to make sure that the supplement brand that you choose actually has the vitamin K2 in the capsule that you're taking. Now, we've spent this whole video treating calcium scores as a clue and not an outcome, but that score and plaque in general gets talked about as if more is always worse and less is always better, but it's not that simple, and a new study about exercise and plaque makes that point even harder to ignore, so make sure to check out all the details here in the next video. And I've put a full write-up and the transcript of every study that I cited over at drstanfield.com, and a link is in the pinned comment below.